pain, void, nothing, suffering, pain, void, nothing, suffering, pain, void, nothing, suffering.
Welcome back to another episode of I Complain About the Music Industry, even though it's only just Spotify and it's not really the music industry. At any rate, today we were talking about the new Spotify update. It's pretty fucking bad. What they've done in an attempt to make all their code more, how should I say, like consistent, they have made the mobile app, the web app, and the desktop version all use the same code, and so it all has the same UI. Let me open it on my phone real quick. You can see it looks pretty much the same. It's got the same like things on the top there, and then it shows you a whole bunch of fucking podcasts you're never going to listen to, and then it'll eventually show you stuff that like you have listened to in the past, and then it's like, wow, look, more shit you're never going to fucking listen to. Updating the way things look and updating UIs of stuff is not a big concern to me. If someone updates the way something looks, I might think it doesn't look as good as what it looked like before, but it's not a big deal. The way something looks is not a big deal. What I care about is functionality. Now, this UI actually works quite well on the phone. The buttons are very clear from the background, and it's actually quite good for the phone. It does not translate to PC. It just doesn't. It doesn't work very well. I'll be doing this later in the video. There's a way to revert to the old AI, UI. Yes, there's an artificial intelligence. There's a way to revert to the old UI, but it doesn't fucking work, really, because Spotify are cracking down on that somehow, and they're like, no, you have to update to this. No, you can't fucking have the old UI. They'll like auto-update it even though I set it to not update. However, we'll get to that later. What we have here is the new Spotify UI. And what I've actually done is I've zoomed it out a little bit to make it a little bit more bearable, but if we zoom it in, you can see everything's just like much closer, and they make the actual like elements for everything really fucking huge for the page. Take this album Dreams right here. This entire whole box is for the album, whereas in the old UI it's literally just the album art, and it's the size of this, if not bigger. They've also put these giant gaps between each of them, and there's all this space in between each of the albums, so you can fit less of them in a row. And there's these giant borders around everything, and I'm pretty sure the text is a little bit bigger. So they've just taken up more space with literally, I was just going to try to point to the screen. You can't see what I'm pointing at right now. They've added more blank space around and in between everything. So there's just less things on the screen. Having these big buffers or these big rounded bubbles around everything is like the mobile app, where it's like a big button for you to put your meaty fucking fingers on. Sausage fingers. And then inside the album artwork, I don't quite remember if it did this before, but like how they like kind of take the average color of the art and make like a gradient there. That's kind of cool. It's kind of cool actually. How they take a color and they make it like a whole gradient about. That's kind of neat. However, everything else here is fucking awful, because look at how massive all of the buttons are and everything. Before, every single song on this album would show up, or you'd have to go like this and then you'd see them all. Now, it takes, I know, let's just for an aside here, I know what I'm talking about is not actually that big a deal. Like, oh my god, the horror of having to scroll. Oh god, how strenuous. But this is a program that I use every single day for like 10 plus hours a day. It's always running. And I want it to be as usable and quick as possible. I want it to be something that I want to use. This is not something I want to use. It's cluttered, it's messy. It's cluttered, and it's also like really spaced out at the same time. Maybe cluttered isn't the right word. Everything is way too large and spaced out. It's just everything's so spaced apart. If you're trying to find the same parts of one element, you gotta like look all over the page. Also, it's really nice that they don't have any alternating colors or lines in between the songs, so if you're just looking at this, it can be a little bit confusing to figure out what number lines up with one unless you're directly hovering over it. So at a glance, you can't immediately tell, so that's great. The buttons, there's so much blank space here. The title's way huger. That's not a word, it's way bigger. The buttons are massive, there's space around them. The songs themselves, the actual like whole box here, that's like 2 songs. That's like the height of 2 songs in the old one, maybe 1.5. And then they add like space between them. There's just so much fucking room. It used to be like nice and compact, and you could see just the list of all the songs. And then more of these, just this bubble around them is annoying. And it used to be just the square. It used to be just the artwork, which was fine. But now they've made the artwork smaller, but the buttons bigger by just adding more blank space around it. Why not just make the fucking album art bigger? And I know it's not bigger by, you gotta, this is all relative, right? This is not like, oh my god, my life is ruined. It's in the context of this UI, in this platform. What they've done is like really fucking bad. Just make the fucking, why make it smaller? Why even make this change? They want to have unity. Oh my god, how fucking stressful it is at their job it must be. Jesus. Having to just fucking spin a wheel every 2 weeks to decide what fucking feature is gonna randomly not work for a little while. Can you sort... Oh, you still fucking can't do that. Even though they've updated the entire fucking app, you still can't do that. For fucking years, you can sort a playlist by title, by the album, by the date added, or by the time, the length of the song. You can do that in any playlist, but for some reason, liked songs, you can't fucking do it for some reason anymore. It just doesn't work. Why? Who the fuck knows? That just stopped working one week, and it's never worked. That was like a year ago, and they just never fucking fixed it. How fucking awesome. Let's go to an artist page now. This is the worst part of the new UI. Let's go to a band that has many albums, Autechre, okay? Here we are on the Autechre page. Already, you can see that the preview picture for them is massive. It's about half the page here. This was way smaller in the other one. Liked songs. This is a feature that was on the phone, but not here. This is like the second interesting feature. Oh, and also, there's the third one right here. There's 3 actually kind of cool changes. In a playlist, you can see that the song number. There wasn't a number. There was only like numbers next to the songs in albums and EPs and stuff. But in your like homemade playlist, there weren't numbers. That is nice. And the liked songs. It's not a feature I think I'll use very often. But that's not a bad feature. It's another way to sort your songs. It's not bad. However, then we move on to where it gets atrocious. Once again, I would like to point out just how awful these fucking bubbles for all the albums are. Just make the artwork big. The artwork was larger than these fucking bubbles that they have here. And they've made the actual clickable space smaller, and then the artwork smaller. And instead, they've replaced it with just a whole bunch of fucking blank space all around it. And they've added more gaps between the albums, so there's just more fucking blank space. You can fit less shit. But I guess, in their defense, they've actually added more shit because they made the album art so fucking small that they can fit more of them in a row here. But the individual element here looks like shit. Now, as you may have noticed, there's a See Discography button here. In the past, you could click on an artist page, scroll down, and you could see every single album, single, and EP they've ever made in a nice big grid. Now, you can't do that. You have to go to the tiny See Discography button, and then you can only view... Oh yeah, look at that. Also, some of the things just like don't load immediately. Unless you scroll all the way to the bottom. You have to be, like there's just a tiny bit left, and then those last 2 will load. Isn't that wonderful? You can't see all of them immediately anyway. So moving on here, we can only look at all of the albums now. Or, we can only look at all of their singles and stuff. And they have quite a few. These are all like live sets. They're all like hour-long live sets here. They have like a fair amount of singles for that reason, but like, you just can't fucking see. This is actually awful. I always use the grid view, so I never look at this, but this is fucking massive. This is huge. It's so huge. You can't see anything. That's awful. I've never liked even in the old UI, I've never liked the list view immediately. I always like the grid. And then you're stuck in this page unless you go back. And by the way, like fucking back arrow, escape, you can't like use the backspace to go back a page or anything. You can't use the arrows. You have to go up to there. Which, I mean, is another one that's like, oh god, the horror. I have to move my mouse. But like every fucking UI on the planet, backspace, go back. Or the arrow keys or something. Enter, backspace, it doesn't work. What did I just do? What? No, what did I just do? I hit some button. Home? What did I do? I went back to the home button somehow. I don't know what I did. I don't know if that was the UI or if that was me. But we're going to ignore that. That was a weird fluke or something. Am I overreacting? Yes. But, again, it's something that I use every day, and they've just made it harder to use. Just look at how fucking big each of the songs are. There's so much. They take up so much individual space that it's, like, ridiculous. They used to be much more compact, and I thought about, like, oh, you could just zoom it out. In order to get back to the original size, you have to, like, zoom it out twice so that it's actually the right size. And then there's still way more space in between them, which I guess you could do this, but, like, oh yeah, that looks fucking great. But then all the text is fucking blurry because it's not, what is that called? Anti-aliasing or something? But like, it's all, the text is all fucking blurry because it's so small and it just looks awful. So you have to have it on the default one. I would have it on the default one. And then it's too fucking big. Moving on to the library section. This is great. Where they just kind of have, this is all of my playlists. This is just this section, but in like a visual form. Which I mean, okay. It's just all my playlists again. But there's also this section I'm never going to even touch because I don't want to give them an inkling of a thought that I might even want to listen to a playlist. Even though that won't do anything because they'll still just keep pushing them in my fucking face. So there's also the liked songs thing right here. So apparently just, I keep fucking pointing. This section right here is just this button again in a visual format. Maybe you want to look at it visually. Fine. Adding an extra button, not a big concern. The artist section, it used to just be right here, but now you have to click 2 buttons to get to where you want to be. The worst fucking case scenario is like, okay, I want to look at the first EP that Autechre ever made. Okay, let's go to Library, Artists, and then Autechre, and then scroll down, and then Discography, and scroll down. It takes, or you could search. You could search it. Which, you know, they just needlessly moved the search thing to right there. So every single time. And then it's up there. Why is the button there? And then they move it. Why not just have the button right fucking there all the time? They're happy to interrupt this picture with little buttons. Why not just fucking keep the button there? I don't understand. This is pretty much the same. The artist and album section, it's pretty much the same. Except, again, it just uses this dumb thing where the album art is smaller and the button is also smaller, but there's more blank space because, I guess, blank space looks good. Now, we are going to go on a journey to the old Spotify UI. And now you can see we have the old UI. And it's much better. There's not a different color. It's just the background and then blam. Right there. It's just the album artwork directly on the background. There's not like a secondary border around it. There's less space. The album art's a little bit bigger. It's just all around a little bit better. So you can click on an album. You can see there's these lines in between them. So you can easily follow it and find out the stuff. It's not ridiculously spaced out with all that stuff. You can just immediately see what you're here to look at. You can go to the artist page and you can just scroll down and it defaults to that mode. So you just got to change that and then it's like that forever. But you can just immediately scroll down and boom, all their albums right there. But what's further, you can scroll down and you can see all the singles. You don't have to go to different fucking sections of the page for some fucking reason. The album art's bigger, it's more clear, it's not cut off in the very corners, it's square like it's supposed to be. It's just in a nice clean grid. There's not these fucking rounded square circle things around it. And this, much fucking smaller. Not much smaller, but like it's just a bit thinner. It looks a bit nicer. Look at this, library right there. You don't have to go into library and then click on those things. You can just go to immediately, blam. You want to look at all your albums? Look at that. Blam. You want to look at your artist? Look at that. Also, notice how in the new UI, Spotify are like, will fucking kill you if you don't listen to his podcast. They are trying to get every single person on the planet to listen to a podcast for some reason. I don't like podcasts, okay? I don't like podcasts. I don't want to listen to podcasts, okay? There's not a single podcast I want to fucking listen to, okay? Spotify, stop putting them on my front page every single time and putting a big pop-up that says, hey, here's a podcast you might like. Every time I open my phone, I'm not going to fucking listen to a podcast. It's never going to make me, you know what? I should listen to it because I was advertised for the 537,000th time. But if it was one less than that, I wasn't going to do it. But finally, I am going to listen to a podcast. No, Spotify. I don't give a shit what the fuck happened to pizza at McDonald's. I'm not going to... I am kind of curious, actually. But I'm not going to fucking listen to it because I don't have the time. I don't care. But notice how in the new UI, they've rearranged where podcasts are so they're further in your list. So you have to click there and then your eyes move up there, right? And your eyes stop on podcast first. It's before all those other things. It's just a little trick they like to play. But they're not going to get me because I'm smart. There's also the Made For You section, which actually has all this playlists that they make for you in one section, unlike the new UI. It's not like you have to scour through your home, scroll way the fuck down to find it. It's just like all the automatically made playlists are right there. This used to be at the very top of this page, and then they just keep shoving it down for some reason. They don't want you to listen to new music, I guess. I don't know. This UI to me just looks way better. Yeah, okay. They've made... What in the god fucking is wrong with them? This library... why do I keep pointing? I'm going to keep pointing. Fuck you. This library here, with all my playlists and stuff, I actually kind of like it on the new one because they made it a bit compact. That's the only thing they made more compact and tight. Everything else is like spaced way the hell out for some reason. But this one, there's just too much space between the individual text there. It's just a bit too, like when you have a whole bunch of folders and a whole bunch of stuff open here, it goes on and it's kind of hard to, and they made the text a bit smaller in the new one too, so like you don't have to like have this all the way out if you want to fucking like have the name of your playlist and stuff. The text is smaller. It's just a bit better. That's like the one thing. I said three things. There's like three things, and then everything else is just fucking awful. So that's it for the video then. Fuck the new Spotify UI. I hope they revert the changes and go back to this one, or at the very fucking least they update it and change it for the computer one because it just doesn't work. It's good on the phone. It just doesn't work on the computer. I think I saw there was a post somewhere where they're like, we're going to be working on it. We're planning on adding back a couple features in a future update. Oh, cool. So in fucking 5 to 10 years, they'll fucking add some of the shit back. So, I don't know. I'll keep looking at what they add in the updates in their blog posts, but I'm not fucking updating. I'm staying in this old version probably forever because knowing them and their fucking release schedule, this shit's never getting updated again.